There is a particular kind of quiet that appears when you stop needing to know what's next. Not because you've figured it out, and not because you've given up, but because the pressure to orient yourself toward the future loosens. This episode is about that space. The space where planning still exists, but certainty no longer feels necessary. For much of life, knowing what's next provided stability, a direction, a storyline, a sense of control. Even when the future was uncertain, having a plan helped you feel grounded. So when that orientation fades, it can feel unsettling at first. You may notice that you no longer feel compelled to map out what comes next in the same way. The question, what am I doing with my life, doesn't land as heavily. Not because it's been answered, but because it no longer feels urgent. This can be confusing. We're taught that clarity comes from foresight, that confidence comes from knowing where we're headed. So when you're not reaching for answers, it may seem like something is missing. But nothing is missing. What's changed is the relationship to not knowing. Earlier, not knowing felt like danger. It meant you were behind, unprepared, at risk. Now, not knowing feels more like openness. Not comforting, not threatening, just open. You may still make plans. You may still think about the future, but those thoughts don't anchor your sense of self. They're provisional, ideas, not identities. You hold them lightly. This changes how anxiety shows up. Anxiety often feeds on imagined futures, scenarios, outcomes, consequences. When you're no longer trying to secure the future internally, those scenarios lose some of their charge. They may still arise, but they don't dominate attention. You don't need to chase them down or resolve them. You let them pass. This doesn't mean you stop caring. You still care about your life, your work, your relationships. But care is no longer driven by fear of what might happen if you don't stay ahead. You respond to what's here instead of trying to manage what hasn't arrived. Not knowing what's next also changes how you experience choice. Choices no longer feel like they determine everything. They're steps, not declarations. You choose based on what's workable now, not on what guarantees a certain future. This removes a lot of pressure. You're not trying to make the right choice for the rest of your life. You're making a reasonable choice for this moment. That's enough. There can be grief in this stage. Grief for the certainty you once had, for the excitement of having a clear direction. It's okay to acknowledge that. Letting go of certainty doesn't mean you didn't value it. It means it no longer fits. This grief doesn't need to be resolved. Passes naturally when you see that life continues without you holding the map. You may notice that intuition becomes quieter here. Not louder, not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself with clarity. It shows up as a simple sense of what's next to do. Send the message. Take the rest. Make the call. Nothing monumental, just the next step. This kind of guidance doesn't promise outcomes. It only offers movement, and movement is enough when you're not trying to arrive. Not knowing what's next also softens how you relate to other people's expectations. Questions like, "What are you doing next?" or "Where's this going?" no longer feel like demands. You answer if you want. You don't if you don't. You don't feel compelled to justify uncertainty. You don't owe anyone a storyline. This can feel freeing, can also feel exposed. But over time, it becomes neutral. Not knowing becomes a place you can stand. Not knowing doesn't mean drifting. It means living without forcing coherence onto the future. Life still unfolds. Opportunities appear. Constraints appear. Decisions arise. You meet them when they do. This meeting is simpler than anticipation. It requires less energy. This episode isn't encouraging passivity. You're not waiting for life to happen to you. You're participating without needing to know where participation leads. That's a subtle but important distinction. When you don't know what's next, you're more available to what's happening. You're not half in the future while the present passes by. You're here. And from here, the next thing becomes obvious when it needs to be. If you're listening to this and noticing a lack of urgency about the future, a loosening of long-term narratives, you're not losing direction. You're living without forcing one. And if these reflections help uncertainty feel less threatening and more workable, you're welcome to stay with the season as it continues. Liking the video helps it reach others who may be quietly learning to live without needing answers. If someone you care about feels anxious about not knowing what's next, you're welcome to share this with them, only if it feels right. Not knowing isn't a gap, it's space, and life moves through it just fine.